title of Cheryl's talk is Discovering Your Leadership Blueprint. Please help me to welcome Cheryl.
Okay, good evening everybody. I'd like to start with a show of hands, please. So I'd like you to raise your hand if you've ever thought, actually, do you know what? No, actually I'm going to start with something different. It's the evening for changing things, right? So, okay, raise your hand if you have a professional qualification for whatever area of work or the thing that it is you do for a living. Okay, so that's virtually everybody in the room. Now, for everybody that raised their hand, how many years roughly do you think you've invested in that qualification and that study? Let's hear a few.
4.
4 years? 5? 17? 20? Okay, so between 5 and 20 years. Now, ask yourself the same question, but this time not for your professional role or expertise, but in terms of being a leader. Have you invested, raise your hand if you've spent the same amount of time and energy investing in your leadership skills as your professional qualification? A few not, okay. Look at you didn't look behind like I did. Everybody raised their hand at the beginning, only 2 or 3 of you raised your hand just then. Okay, now I'm going to suggest to you that a lot of how we learn, you might have been on a leadership course, you might have been on some training, it might have been absolutely excellent, you might have read a book. But I'm going to say to you, we learn more through experience. So now if I say to you, I think we learn more from good and bad bosses, good and bad leaders, and I share with you my first bad experience with a boss, I can tell you now, if I saw her in the street, I would not let her see me. I was 20, her name was Wendy, and her style of leadership, sorry Wendy, her style of leadership was power and fear and making you feel small. So much so that the night before a conference, there I am, keen and eager assistant, and I'm really, really trying to work hard to please my boss. And she had me going backwards and forwards from the venue to the office for things that had been forgotten so many times that Sunday night. I was absolutely exhausted and still a new driver, and I got a speeding ticket. Oh, I know, thank you. But do you think she offered to pay for it? No. Actually, she found it funny. And it was a story she would tell for years and years. In contrast, let me say to you, a boss by the name of Doreen, or Doe as we called her, about 6 months later after that incident, I took an opportunity. She had a job going as a personal assistant. And I thought, this will be my chance to say to her, I'm keen and eager and I can do more than run around after this evil boss, who everybody knew about. And that boss, that leader, within, goodness, about 5 minutes of that conversation, and had said, okay, well then let's do something different. Within 6 months, I was studying for my professional human resources qualifications. Within 3, she put me in a trainee role and just let me loose. I flew, my career flew, the team flew. We were nationally recognised for working on something called Investors in People that all those years ago was really, I mean, it's still around, but it's really, really big stuff. And that's because she was an amazing leader and she saw potential. Now, what I'm going to say to you is, I think our learning about leadership starts way back. So a bit like Fred, in your childhood, actually the things you hear, the things you see, the stories and the experiences that you have, that's where I believe we start learning about all the things that are important in leadership. So for me, I was a lot more orange than I am now. I was ginger. I had NHS glasses, NHS braces, and boy, did I have spots. Really kind of the underdog. And yet, growing up in a household, I wasn't bullied. I'm going to tell you that now. Not all ginger kids are bullied. But growing up in a household where actually my family were the most conservative family with a small c you've ever met in your life, there you have an awkward kid but craving for contact and attention. And, you know, I'd have a conversation with you at a bus stop, drop of a hat. Now, I don't tell you that to feel sorry for me, although you can if you want. No, I don't. I tell you that because it shaped 2 things in me. One, it made me independent, self-sufficient, lots of lovely strengths, you know, quite resilient. But then it's not until later on in life that I've realised the big effect it's had on me. and even down to school experiences, like a careers teacher in a grammar school. Everybody was going to university except me. I pitch up, I go in, I'm really keen, I'm going in, the careers teacher sitting in front of me, I've got my consultation, I've been waiting for weeks for this consultation, and she says, Cheryl, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I go, I want to work with people. What do you think the reaction was? Anybody guess? I'm in a grammar school, everybody else is going to university. Any ideas?
What do you want to do that for?
Worse than that. Worse than what do you want to do that for? Come back and talk to me when you've got something serious to discuss. If she was standing here now and I was saying, I work with people, I develop people, I challenge them, I can stand up and talk, who'd be laughing now? Because she was laughing then. Now, again, where all these experiences come from. Now, the title of my talk is about a blueprint. So what I'm going to say to you is that in all the leadership work that I've done in 20 years, the last 6 have really started to kind of really make me concentrate on the person that I'm working with in front of me in a very, very different way. Yes, we can talk techniques. Yes, we can look at things differently. All of them are wanting to look at power or authenticity or influence, or how they get people to actually follow them in what they want to do. But the one thing that I've started to look at is it's actually called Leadership Insight. And it's something that actually starts with the individual. Got lots of actualities coming in here. Right. So what it says is you don't need 360-degree feedback. You don't actually necessarily need anybody to talk to you and say, this is how you should lead, or learn from the good or the bad examples. It works around a pattern that I've just put up behind me. So what it says is every single one of us has principles that we work to. Principles that get us out of bed in the morning. They might be why we do the career that we do. We're drawn to them. We want to aspire to them. So they're kind of like values, really. Each of us also has things that trigger a reaction in us. And that reaction is lightning quick, because it's all the things we've experienced in our life that get us to that point, okay? But when you're triggered so quick. I mean, it could literally be, one of you doesn't know my trigger, says it, and it's like a reflex. It's like when you smack your knee, you know? It's that instant. And the feeling, the back of your brain, which is the quickest thing, the fight or flight reaction, is the thing that kicks in. And we've all got these patterns. The thing I think that really stopped me on my tracks when I started working with this is some of us will know some of that stuff going on. But what we don't realise, although you might have heard people say you can't change somebody else, you can only change yourself, is that actually if I'm a bit of a master around these things and how I respond, or even just give myself that brief second in the moment to catch myself before I react, that's like gold dust, because other people respond to us and the way we behave. So let me give you an example. I'm not going to share any of my clients because giving their principles and triggers would be a bit unfair. Let me explain mine. You've just met me. My first principles are around imagination, movement and inspiration. Kind of says why I do what I do. And that movement could be the smallest thing. If I'm working with you and you get an achievement, it could be the smallest of things. It's movement. That's why I do what I do. Okay? And yet, I can be triggered by, these are quite special, appraisal or choosing direction. Now, appraisal, I'm standing up in front of you tonight. And appraisal in a trigger sense is not a good thing. You're not showering me with praise if I'm being triggered. No, it's fearing judgment, just as Elliot was talking about earlier. And my automatic response to these things would be dismay, and I'd be really struggling to apply myself. But I've got 40 plus years of actually working with this. So your reaction might be either completely overjoyed when it's going well, fantastic, Cheryl, you know, you've nearly done 10 minutes, you haven't made any massive, massive bloopers yet. Or you would be completely unaware, because I'm very, very good at hiding it and appearing very, very confident. So imagine, I've just shared a small snippet for you. There's a lot that goes into this. This is a brave thing to do, because you really have to go into the stuff that you've been working with and using and bearing, and you've got to trust the person that you're working with. But imagine if you could have that moment to pause, or you could know yourself, your self-leadership, that it would make a difference when you're working with people, or when you're in that boardroom, or when you're trying to actually change something around. So if you would like to talk to me and find out a bit more about this tantalising thing I've given you today, my lovely assistant, young Nick, has both my speaker sheet and also some cards that he will give away because I don't want to carry them on the train. Thank you very much for your time.